Native Society Part 2, Session 6. We want to illustrate by use of line diagrams what is the effect of land that is enclosed and not freely available. We have been considering this for the past 2 weeks. When the first settler arrives, he has many good plots of land to choose from. The wealth that this first person produces can be illustrated by this line diagram. So the first arrival comes and he produces of a wealth of product 10 units. Let's say a new settler arrives and settles on land slightly inferior to A. This, as we discussed, immediately increases the wealth produced as a result of cooperation between the two settlers. A's wealth is now 15 and B, the new arrival, has wealth totaling 14. And this is depicted by the diagram here. Two things to note in passing. One, before the arrival of B, the wealth produced was solely by the work that A did. It was his wages and it totaled 10. When B arrived, wages on both sides increased to 14. Equal skill and effort used by both settlers. A small amount of wealth is due to the superior site. This amount is 1 unit. A third settler arrives and occupies a site that is slightly inferior to the first two sites. The wealth produced on the 3 sites again increases compared to the first 2 scenarios again due to cooperation. The line diagram now becomes this. Third settler arrives and the wealth increases on site A to 20 units, site B to 18 units, and site C to 16 units. Again, wages go up from 14 to 16, and also more rent arises on site A and B. Although wages have gone up, it reduces as a proportion to all the wealth produced. Rent increases as a proportion though. Along comes settler D, who is a specialist tradesman that this community of 4 can use. For him to be of the greatest service, he must occupy a site that is at the center of the community. Site B fits this requirement. When he occupies this site, again wages and rent both rise. So D arrives and occupies site B, and the rent goes up by 10. Settler D, which is on B's site, produces a greater quality of wealth because of its specialist service that is of great use to the community. What he produces increases the productivity of all settlers, so that each site's product also increases as does the wage level. B is now extracting a rental value of 10 from D's use of the site. Realizing that there is great profit in letting out sites for use of others, B claims and encloses 3 sites that are close to the town center. So B decides to claim 3 sites close to the town center of rental values of product values 18, 16, and 14. These sites being of value, let's say, have powers of production 18, 16, and 14 respectively. The next settler E to arrive does not have access to 3 sites close to the town center. He has to go out to a site which he has the power of production lower than these 3 sites, say 12. This site is not very convenient to settle on. It is far away from the population center, almost isolated, and does not benefit from the cooperation that a close community provides. He may decide to go to the town center to seek employment instead. If sites A, B, or C offers E employment, they are unlikely to offer him a wage more than 12, because this is the amount he will earn on the remote site. When he is employed, he again immediately increases the rental value of each site, but the wage level is now lower at 12. One should note that had the sites not been enclosed, E's wage level would be at least 18, the product level for the next available site. As more settlers arrive and more sites are enclosed, it is clear that wage levels would fall and rental values would rise. This, incidentally, is the reason why it is said that the rich grow richer and the poor get poorer. The next two diagrams, in summary, depict what takes place when land is free, showing natural rent, and when land is all enclosed, showing inflated rent. So this is when land is free, showing the natural rent. And this is when land is all enclosed, showing inflated rent. Because the wage level is reducing all the time. So we have a break now, and we return to the course in a few seconds. To sum up once again, where land is free, wages are allowed to take their full share of production. And this would generally allow the laborer to acquire his own capital in the form of tools, etc., by his own means rather than by loans. Where, however, in the second scenario where land is not free, wages are drawn down to its lowest level, to the least a man is willing to accept, under the threat of competition from others and employment. He makes a bare living and cannot purchase his own capital, and has either to be provided with same by his employer or to resort to loans to acquire them. In the second scenario, a third entity enters the picture, that of the providers of capital, who would demand interest payments for any capital advanced. As we saw earlier, this entity does not necessarily use his own funds, but uses the funds provided as a result of the wealth created by others. What we have described over the past 2 weeks has universal application in every country in the world and in every period historically. It is as a result of natural forces in operation. If we are to improve the lot of humanity, these forces must be recognized and harmonized with. To ignore them, as has been done in the past, is to continue to invite perennial disaster. We close this evening's meeting by listening once again to Henry George, who aptly described in vivid terms the scenario where land is all enclosed. This fact, the great fact that poverty and all its concomitants show themselves in communities just as they develop into into the conditions toward which material progress tends, proves that the social difficulties existing whenever a certain stage of progress has been reached do not arise from local circumstances, but are in some way or another engendered by progress itself. And, unpleasant as it may be to admit it, it is at last becoming evident that the enormous increase in productive power, which has marked the present century and is still going on with accelerating ratio, has no tendency to extirpate poverty or to lighten the burdens of those compelled to toil. It simply widens the gulf between Dives and Lazarus, and makes the struggle for existence more intense. The march of invention has clothed mankind with powers of which a century ago the boldest imagination could not have dreamed. But in factories where labor-saving machinery has reached its most wonderful development, little children are at work. Wherever the new forces are anything like fully utilized, large classes are maintained by charity or live on the verge of recourse to it. Amid the greatest accumulation of wealth, men die of starvation, and puny infants suckle dry breasts, while everywhere the greed of gain, the worship of wealth, shows the force of the fear of want. The promised land flies before us like a mirage. The fruits of the tree of knowledge turn, as we grasp them, to apples of Sodom that crumble at the touch. It is true that wealth has been greatly increased, and that the average of comfort, leisure, and refinement has been raised. But these gains are not general. In them, the lowest class do not share. I do not mean that the conditions of the lowest class has nowhere nor anything been improved, but there is nowhere any improvement which can be credited to increased productive power. I mean that the tendency of what we call material progress is in no wise to improve the condition of the lowest class in the essentials of happy human health, essentials of healthy, happy human life. Nay, more, that it is to still further depress the condition of the lowest class. The new forces, elevating in their nature, though they be, do not act upon social fabric from underneath, or, as was for a long time hoped and believed, but strike it at a point of intermediate between top and bottom. It is as though an immense wedge were being forced, not underneath society, but through it. Those who are above the point of separation are elevated, but those who are below are crushed down. As taken from Progress and Poverty. We are not here to render any blame or cast any aspersions on anyone or any group in society. This must be emphasized. These are natural forces at work in every society and in every age of existence. Until we can unearth and analyze the true reasons for advancing progress and increasing poverty, laying blame will just be a distraction to the solution. The solution is right under our feet. We just have to open our eyes and observe. Let next week be a week of observation. See if you can relate what we discuss in this course to what we see in society. Come back and share what you observe, what your observations are. Before we end, I would like again to let you know, your attendees know, that Unsustainable Development is an educational offering devoted to the dissemination of its course to all of mankind and to those who have the English language as their official language in the first instance, and to all eventually all over the world. To make this possible, and because we do not charge a fee for its dissemination, we rely wholeheartedly on monetary donations to meet the cost of achieving these goals. If you have found these sessions useful thus far and would like others to have access to them, we would gratefully accept your donations should you be inclined to offer them. You can send donations to our PayPal account at the email address notebroker2001@yahoo.com. Thank you for your kind gesture. As indicated before, you can communicate with us by going to our Facebook page on sustainable development or our YouTube channel, Balancing the Economy. We will respond to all your comments or questions. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel. Press the alert button to get notices that our latest session has been posted. All sessions are archived at our Facebook page. Please share with your family, friends, and acquaintances.